Hey guys, welcome back to Jess and Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm going to be talking about all of my 2021 plans and goals for this year. I'm really excited. I feel like 2020 was like the longest, and also it passed by very quickly. Like, it was weird. Anyway, I just recently went over my 2020 goals and if I accomplished them or not. I'm gonna be listing stuff that at the end of this year, I'll check back in and see how well that I did with this list. Some of these are personal goals, some of these are challenges to myself, but I just thought I would go over what my plans for the whole year are. So first things first, Goodreads challenges. Everyone does them. I'm not setting myself a real goal. I am putting 100 on Goodreads challenge. I always go over if I put 100 like by a lot. I believe last year I put my goal as 100 or 150 and I read about 250. So I always exceed it by a lot more. I'm not setting a goal for myself because I don't know month to month what my reading experience is going to be like. Once I started BookTube and I start recording everything, like it's going to vary. Now that I'm back in school, working full-time, doing the podcast and BookTube, we're gonna see how many books I'm able to read, but I'm not gonna stress about it, is what I'm saying, like a year goal. If I read only 50 books this year, then I'm gonna be happy with that. It's going to be fine. Now, this is something that I wanted to do differently. In previous challenges, Goodreads challenges, I've only counted new reads as books that I've read in 2020, but I reread quite a bit, and I also frequently reread for the podcast. Most of the time, the books that I put on the podcast, I'll read them and then put them on months later, but I will reread them the week that we're going to actually record the episodes. So these are books that I'm taking the time out of my schedule to read again, and also just comfort reads. I just want to revisit some old favorite characters, and I think that should count towards the books that I read throughout the year. I'm still going to separate my new reads from my rereads so that I can have those numbers just to see how many rereads that I did for 2021 versus how many new books that I discovered for 2021. I'm going to separate that, and that leads me to my next point, the way that I'm going to track my books. At first, I wanted to get a reading journal. I see a ton of people journaling about their reads. I'm not creative. I can't really draw. I'm not that person. So I bought planners in the past and I haven't utilized them, especially not throughout the whole year. I don't like my handwriting either, so I think that that's a big factor in why I don't continue doing the planner, because I'm like, I hate my handwriting. So though I had like a little moment where I was like, I want to have a cutesy planner, and I was gonna get the Little Inklings Always Fully Booked planner, it worked out because they were all sold out. They weren't gonna be restocked, and I was like, you know what? I love making like spreadsheets and all that, and I already use Airtable for a lot of things for book tracking and stuff. So I'm going to start off the year book tracking on Airtable completely, and I have a bunch of categories that I want to keep track of. I'm a numbers person and I love looking at stats, so I'm gonna keep track of a lot more than just what book, what author, and if it's a reread or not in the subgenre. So I do have the Airtable app. It's nice to have on hand, but I prefer the desktop version to actually like get the full experience. But these are the categories that I'm including for my book tracking. Of course, the book title and the author, they have a specific category for rating, which is amazing because I can like prioritize rating as how I want to sort the books. I love being able to do that. So I'm really excited about that feature. Then I'm going to include, if it's a series or a standalone, these genres, so all the subgenres, and I'm not just doing contemporary, historical, and paranormal. I am gonna separate that into like sci-fi and fantasy as well, like further separate that. I might even do new adult, erotica, I don't know. Or I might do like contemporary in parentheses and then erotica, new adult, whatever. I might dive further into that. I'm also recording the format which I read these books on. So I'm a huge ebook reader, but I have a lot of physical copies of historical romances now that Step Back Saturday was such a big hit on Instagram. I got tons of mystery book boxes and lots from eBay, so I have a lot of physical copies. So I'm gonna be reading those, hopefully a lot of them this year. And I just fell into the world of audiobooks. I didn't really love audiobooks to begin with, but 2020 I started listening to them out of necessity because I had less time to actually sit down and read, and I can multitask pretty well. So it's really nice to be able to listen to an audiobook while I'm working. And even though not all of the narrators really capture what I think the characters should sound like, I recently read a Cat and Bones audiobook. I listened to it and the voice for Bones was just throwing me off so bad, but it was fine. I like the story. But anyway, I'm going to be recording how I'm consuming my books. And then I have a category for like, you have reviewed this book and the date read. If it's traditional or indie, I do want to record how many indies am I consuming per year, how many books are traditionally published. So I have that, and then I also have a section for, is this a reread or is this a new read? So lots of categories to keep track of, but that makes me happy. All these options are just going to keep me in line and tell me what I need to know at the end of the month and at the end of the year. Another personal goal. So for 2020, my goal was to review every single book that I read on Goodreads, because reviews are super important, especially for indie romance authors. And I was just kind of slacking in years before that and just doing a star rating, and I wasn't really reviewing. So I decided I wanted to do more reviews on Goodreads. And I feel like Goodreads is such a space for readers to see what other people are reading, people that they've had similar taste to. So I want to actually put out a review to expand on my thoughts and not just do a rating, because the rating is only part of the story. I do still have my December books to log, but I really wrote a review for every single book and I was very proud of myself. So I'm taking it a step further and copying all of those, well, not copying my 2020 reads. I should do that. I mean, I feel bad, but definitely in 2021, I'm going to post them on Amazon as well. Amazon algorithms for authors really depend on rating and reviews, especially indie authors. So that's another personal goal for me, to review on Amazon every single book that I read. So it's not even going to be that hard because I'm already writing a review. I just need to put it on multiple platforms. I just need to do it. It's going to be fine. That is my personal goal. Then I have complete more reading challenges. Since I started BookTube, I've been a part of some reading challenges, and I have been very prolific during those challenges. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the reading challenges, not if I feel stressed about it, but definitely I love those. And so that's a goal for me, is to get these reading challenges accomplished, because it does help further the number of books that I read per year. In the same vein, I want to be a part of a lot more book club reads. Lots of booktubers and bookstagrammers have these book clubs, and I just love discussing books with the community, so I'm definitely planning on being a part of a lot more of those. Now for my monthly reads. Usually I do a TBR at the beginning of the month, and it's not that I don't want to do them anymore, but I'm such a mood reader that I hardly ever stick completely to my TBR. And I think one month I only read like 3 from my TBR, and I put a list of like a bunch of them. So instead of naming almost 20 books that I want to read in the month, it's not that I don't want to read them by the end of the month, it's that I'm such a mood reader, and setting myself these limitations of these are the set books that you're supposed to read during this month, it makes me not want to read them. So I'm going to lessen the amount of books that I put publicly on my TBR. And so those books will be limited to the book club books, the book club picks that I'm going to be a part of, and also just a handful of books, so that I feel like I'm actually accomplishing my TBR, with the addition of whatever other books that I'm mood reading, and those will be wrapped up for the month. I'm also thinking about doing some weekly reading updates to kind of keep me on track for my quick reviews. My quick reviews will be posted on Goodreads and Amazon. I definitely don't expect myself to like write a huge analysis on the book for my reviews. I just want to review. I want to put something down, something that reflects my thoughts and also reflects the thoughts that I give you guys for my monthly wrap-ups. That's the kind of reviews that I do. But I think that if I make a video for weekly wrap-ups, it'll help me stay on track with actually writing the physical reviews. So I think I'm gonna do that. We'll see if that becomes a recurring video or not. I'm definitely gonna try it out in January and see what I think about it. So that's mostly like, let's see what happens with this goal. Also, I want to be reading more indie romances. I have such great luck with loving indie romances. And there's so much out there. It's a lot to filter through, but luckily I have so many friends on BookTube now that give such great indie romance recommendations. Lots of those recommendations end up by filtering onto the podcast that I do as well. So I'm looking forward to discovering more indie authors. Now here's a podcast goal. I don't really have a rhyme or reason, especially during 2020. I tried to alternate, but I didn't have a rhyme or reason for subgenres of romance, and I leaned heavily, just like my reading habits in 2020 leaned heavily towards contemporary romances, the podcast episodes leaned heavily towards contemporary as well. So for my yearly schedule that I do for each year, I have a list. I'm trying to make sure that I'm alternating equally between contemporary, historical, paranormal / sci-fi. I know that it's not always going to be perfect because there's lots of new releases that I'll suddenly throw on the podcast right after I read them, so that might mess with it, but I'm hoping that it'll be more balanced. And then I have a couple of reading goals for the year. I want to finish the Immortals After Dark series. It's been slow going. I binged a lot of them and then kind of got burnt out, didn't want to read, and then I got back into it for the Paranormal Romance Readathon, and I loved McCreeve. I think I only have 3 books left in that series, so this year I need to catch up with Immortals After Dark finally and be done with the series so that I can feel all caught up with the characters. I just recently finished the Night Hunter series by Janine Frost, and so I will be starting Once Burned, which is the start of Vlad's series. Too late, I discovered that I should have read this series in between the 6th and the 7th book in the Night Hunter series, but it's fine. So I want to read Vlad's book and then Ian's book, Books, the series that they have. I also want to go into the backlist of a lot of authors that I discovered, and it's mostly historical authors. Lorraine Heath has a ton in her backlist. I still need to read more Julie Garwood's. There's lots of historical romance authors that I just discovered in 2020 and have yet to read as well that I need to read. Lots of classic historical romance authors, as well as new author discoveries like Stacey Reed. She has a couple series out and I want to go read all of her books. Again, I did this in 2020, but I'm really stressing it this year. I'm limiting the amount of arcs that I'm requesting. Sometimes it's hard to resist the temptation because everybody else is reading an arc of a book. But I know myself and I know which books that I want to read and stuff that I don't mind waiting on. And just like setting my own TBR, having an arc staring down at me, if it's not something that I like have been dying to read, kind of feels like more of a chore than it does like excitement. So that's why I want to limit the amount of arcs to books that I like really know I'm going to love or have been highly anticipating. That's what I want to limit myself to 2021. All right, guys, that is all the goals that I'm setting for myself in 2021. We'll see at the end of the year where it all plays out, where it all lands. I'm really excited about using Airtable to track because I was frustrated with Goodreads and how it like doubled up some of my books for the challenges and just the pain to fix. And yeah, I just don't trust Goodreads to be accurate, to be the only place where I record my reads. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with a little HEA. Bye, guys.